let's start with a relatively big question then. Why is it important to study ethics in AI?
Yeah, this is a very broad question. And of course, you're asking me who I'm doing my PhD on the ethics of AI, so I think I can talk about this topic for hours, but if I have to summarize it, I think that this, in my opinion, is essential to study ethics of AI and in all stages of development of AI. So even from early design stages throughout, and also like once the AI systems are deployed. And this is because AI systems are already being implemented in the world. And even though they have the capacity to make a lot of benefits, they are also doing some harms, and also like it can potentially even make more harms in society. So it's very important that we actually take that into account even from early stages, because otherwise we see like what is happening. I can tell you, for example, about specific examples. There's like this. There's a very famous study called the Gender Shades by Timnit Gebru and Joe Bulamini, who studied different software that were used for facial recognition. I think it was from Amazon and IBM. And what they found in that study is that there was racial bias, because women of color had much more percentage of error, so they were much more misrecognized than, let's say, for example, white men. So errors like that, they could have a great impact on society, because being misrecognized, for example, in a facial recognition system could mean that, for example, when you are going through airport security, you are misrecognized, you are misidentified as another person, and that could cause you a harm. So this is just a tiny example. I imagine like other systems that may be applied in the public sector, for example. Like that's something I'm very interested in my PhD, because I thought that AI systems that are maybe in the private sector, of course, they can have an impact, but the public sector AI systems, they affect basically all citizens of a country. For example, systems that decide if someone should get social benefits, or systems that decide, for example, if someone is eligible for job and employment benefits. So imagine that, for example, there would be a bias in that system. It would cause, for example, like discrimination for a very high percentage of people. So,
but if we go a bit deeper on the current impacts of AI on society, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the very complex AI structures and systems that are coming out these days and are very exciting for people to study, but very simpler stuff. It can be AI algorithms that learn about people. What have been the impacts so far, do you think? And would you consider them to be a net positive or a negative?
The answer is it depends. It depends a lot on the area and the specific system that we are talking about. So, of course, there's a lot of systems that are already being implemented from healthcare. For example, I can think of IBM Watson, for example, or systems that are being used for helping diagnose, for example, different diseases, and also in transportation with self-driving cars, or for example, route optimization, as well as in finance, banking, or as I was mentioning before, in the public sector, right? So there's many AI systems, especially I think systems that help to take decisions are becoming more and more common. And of course, we have a very kind of hot example, which is ChatGPT, right? Which is a system that nowadays is causing a lot of, I would say, maybe concern, and as well as maybe discussion, maybe good discussion too on the topic. So there's a lot of impacts. I would say that some of them are very good, but some of them could also be quite detrimental. And what worries me the most is that many of these harms tend to affect the most the people who are already in disadvantage in society. So, for example, groups that are already, for example, minorities, groups that are racialized groups, immigrants, for example. So those groups tend to be the groups that receive the most negative impact. So in a way, it's we are exacerbating, we are making the current society harms even worse. So therefore, I think that it's very important to try to put these people on the center and try to, when we design or when we develop AI systems, to try to think first about them, because they are the population that are most at risk of receiving these harmful outcomes.